welcome to the Situation Room in PTV World, where we are discussing the post-Pahalgam false flag operation scenario in India, in Pakistan, how Pakistan is completely prepared to face any kind of Indian designs whatsoever, as India has been pom-pomming or, beating the drums, or let's put it, beating the war drums in the last few days through its media, through its statements, as if it's going to create havoc in the region, when it very well knows the reaction that it's going to get from Pakistan if it ventures into anything of that sort. We continue to be joined by very interesting guests in this segment as well. We continue to have Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti, who's our foreign affairs expert, in the studio with us. But we also now have been joined by Major General Tariq Rashid Khan Saab. He is Hilal Imtiaz military and a defense analyst. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us as well. We'll also be joined online by a special guest. As soon as that guest comes, we'll also introduce that guest to you. But in the meantime, we will revert to our two guests who are here in the studios. We were discussing, General Saab, the DG-ISPR's press briefing that happened yesterday, and he said there's going to be a longer press briefing soon with the question and answer session. But let's revert to a little bit of that, because that revealed and gave proof of a side to the Indian designs that was always apparent, but now is being made public by the Pakistani army. And we all know, and the involvement of the serving Indian army personnel in these nefarious designs becomes even more apparent because of the different proofs that have been found, as has been demonstrated by the DG-ISPR. Considering the evidence presented, how, in your point of view, should Pakistan recalibrate its strategy to neutralize such foreign-backed networks more comprehensively? Is it doing the needful? What more does it need to do?
I think Pakistan's response is very apt, and they are already doing what needs to be done. And we are constantly in touch with our close friend like China, like Turkey, like Saudi Arabia, and for that matter, even we have kept Iran in picture. So whatever is needed done at diplomatic level and militarily, already we maintain round the clocks vigilance and across all types of border, whether it's LOC, line of control, or line of actual contact, or international border. And as you know that along a line of control or a line of actual contact, we have our professional soldier all the time. We have a defensive corps which extend from, do you know that, from Sechin Glacier to the river Chenab, and once from where the international border starts. Then we have a combination of rangers and also our regular forces wherever is required as per the contingency. So Pakistan is ready for any sorts of eventuality. As DG-ISPR in his briefing, they had said that last night 4 Rafale jets, they were patrolling along the line of control in the Indian held Kashmir. So we were watching them from the time they took off, and they were approaching our borders, and had they crossed the border, their fate have been more lethal and fateful than what happened to Abhinandan. So Abhinandan was lucky to be alive, and that was hospitality of Pakistani, that they offered him a cup of tea and the food also, and he still keep mentioning.
Yes,
it was so,
the tea was fantastic, as
fantastic.
they say.
And he said the Pakistani hospitality was tremendous, you see. And he said that from where once I had ejected, so both the country looked same to me. And he also mentioned that we need to look peacefully. But no, at the moment, the Modi, after having failed in his overall design of this Pahalgam incident, what mileage he wanted to draw, he could not, because this is today the 8th day, and he has not been able to give a single evidence that where were those people who came and killed those 26 men. Have they been dissolved in the air? And that's why you had hinted, for example, there come of mutiny or some disobedience in the Indian in hierarchy, and their top general with the name of Suchindra Kumar, who very unceremonially called back because he said there is no evidence of Pakistan involvement. This incident happened in his area of responsibility, and Northern Command is one of their major
Now that you highlighted, I'd like to ask that question. Why does this, what does this sudden arrest and removal of Lieutenant General M.V. Suchendra Kumar suggest about the internal divisions that exist within the Indian military and political leadership following the false flag operation in Pahalgam?
You see, the Indian military is already stashed out. I was just seeing their cases of suicide which are happening in Indian Army. In last 20 years, they said there have been over 2,000 cases of suicide in the Indian Army. And I was dividing it with the 24 months. So it happened that around 80 to 90 suicide cases are taking place in Indian Army. So they are deployed in the Indian High Kashmir for last over 2 decades. Over 900,000 people. So there is a limit to endurance. The people are not with them and they are stretched out. We have seen so many videos where they are just complaining about their normal, even daily routines, that we don't get time to rest, there is not, we are not being well fed, we are stretched out. And I have seen few videos of Srinagar where the people were, after this incident, they were talking against the Modi government, that how can we attack tourists? The only means of livelihood of ours in Kashmir Valley, they were saying, is tourism. And the total value of the Kashmir, as you know, is 10.6 million. And last year, 20 million tourists visited Kashmir. More than the population, the tourists come there every year. And the only source of income is their tourism.
True.
Why should they attack? Why anybody who is a sympathizer or who is a friend of Kashmiris, why would he do it? So it was a total act of their own government, and they have not been able to either convince, given any evidence to Pakistan or any international community. New York Times raised this views. The United States Security Council asked them that instead of, please give us
the New York Times has taken a report out in which the diplomats were telling the Indian side, give us some proof before,
everybody
we can
is asking
make
them that instead of blaming, you are blaming, you are passing the judgment, and you are trying to be executor also. You are trying to violate the international border. You say we will strike. Do you think we will not strike back? Our response by, as you said, by the ISPR and even by our minister Tariq is very clear, that you can attack Pakistan, but our response will be more lethal and painful to you.
The response will be lethal and painful, says our information minister. And let's talk about the presser by information. We've been joined by Maria Sultan, Dr. Maria Sultan, defense analyst online. Maria, thank you very much to have joined us. Maria, first of all, we all know what happened since the 22nd of this month, how India has been through its jingoism, through its warmongering, highlighting and bringing India towards war with Pakistan, and with a narrative that is completely based on falsehoods. Our information minister, Mr. Tariq, late last night, talks to the media in a video message, and of course talks about a certain intelligence that we have received, that India intends to carry out military action against Pakistan in the next 24 to 36 hours on the pretext of this baseless and concocted allegations. How does this intelligence, Maria, reveal about India's preparations for military actions in these next hours, and how serious is this threat in your point of view?
Well, first of all, there is no denying the fact that the threat is serious, because we're not dealing with a rational actor. We're dealing with an extremely irrational actor, which can lie, can cheat, and can actually deceive not only its own people, but also the international community. And let's not forget about the, India's disinfo lab, in which they, deceived the European Parliament in terms of what was actually happening on Kashmir, where they duped their parliamentarians and took them to Srinagar on the behest that they were actually going and supporting people on ground, while it was actually facilitated by the intelligence agency. And similarly, we have seen the cases in which RAW has now been implicated, not only in Pakistan, where they have been committing acts of terrorism, but also in Canada and elsewhere. So the fact of the matter is this, that yes, we are dealing with a serious threat, because we are dealing with a desperate government which is being led by Modi, which is not only right-wing, but also a government which is trying real hard that it should convince not only its people, the international community, that there is actually some space for war. The reality is that since, this morning's response, which Pakistan has given since last night, that, India has the right to initiate the war, and we do not dispute that, because every country has the right to start a war. But the question is that once you start that war, you're not going to be in a position to control that war. That's for sure. Secondly, Pakistan has the right and shall retain its right to maintain the intensity, the pace, and also the space in which Pakistan is going to counteract. So, this basically means that there is a big issue with regards to how this is being projected. Their projection effort was that it should be seen as a small counterterrorism operation. They should come and hit us. We should not respond because they have, a locus standi. Now, what has happened is that people like you and other people which have actually deliberately questioned the very rationale, the very raison d'etre on which they are trying to justify this, that's actually based on falsehood. Now, given that, there is a big predicament. The predicament is that how do you convince the rest of India, the people in the south, the people in the center, the people in the rest of India, that you're actually going to fight a war which actually does not require an action by India because it's actually based on falsehood. Number two, are you ready to actually lose a war on the disputed territory of Kashmir, which incidentally does not belong to India? So the fact remains that this is a war of attrition, which they want to fight on the information battle. And that's not going to happen because if they are going to convince Pakistan or they're going to convince anybody in this region, or for that matter, the international community, that they're on the right, then in that case, they will have to come up better than, what they have done in Belgaum. One. And secondly, empty threats will be met with a very strong iron resolve by Pakistan because Pakistan is not going to be bullied. Pakistan is not going to take all of this in the name of whatever they're trying to sell domestically or internationally. Because the fact remains that we are a nuclear state. And this needs to be seen in the same context in which it is being presented. That it's a serious situation, it requires international attention, it requires serious attention in people in India. And also, a bigger question mark with regards to this that are they really willing to fight a war with Pakistan? Or is it just something which they want to project and actually get away with the notion of victory which doesn't exist on ground?
But the fact is, Maria, if you see, if you compare 2019 and 2025, what happened in 2019 and in 2025, what we see is a more visual projection of how India wants to, show its jingoism or its war hysteria. We saw the visuals of Narendra Modi with the chiefs and also, talk. This never happened in the past. There's a deliberate attempt by India to highlight a certain aspect of how India wants to move forward and what the Indian public, quote unquote, or what the Indian diaspora instead is in fact moving towards and thinking of when it comes to Pakistan. How, you remember very well our Prime Minister said that there needs to be an impartial and independent investigation into the Pahalgam incident. The DGISPR also reiterated that yesterday. He also said there is no proof whatsoever of of Pakistan's implication in the false flag operation in Pahalgam. India has to date not provided any of that proof. How should the Indian community, in your point of view, Maria, interpret India's rejection of, there is no response of Pakistan's offer for this independent and impartial investigation into the Pahalgam incident? Is it because they know who is the culprit?
I think it is a very difficult condition for the Indians in India and also for the Indians elsewhere. Because two things have changed for the Indians. One thing which has changed is that they are no longer in a position where they can actually claim their rights under the Indian constitution to be free and also independent citizens of India. Because as we understand, the Citizen Amendment Act basically bars them and it gives the right to the state that it can not only cancel citizenship of those Indians which are overseas, but also the ones who are inside India on the basis of the National Register for Citizenship and also on other bases which they can deem necessary with regards to their national security obligations. So that basically means this is not an independent, free India we are talking about. This is an India which is living under siege. This is an India which is under the saffron color of the Modi government. And in this context, where there are popularizing war, there is a real genuine fear in the rest of India that what is actually going to happen. Because you see, this is not 1965, this is not 71, this is not going to be a war in which, they're going to do something and we're just going to absorb it or we're just going to turn around and it's going to be mass scale movement. This is going to be a war of high precision, high intensity, high tempo war. And in this case, if there's going to be a high intensity, high tension war, then it means that you have the right and you will use the right according to the manner in which you deem fit. Why should we be restrained to a battle where they want us to fight a war in, the disputed territory of Kashmir, which is under Indian occupation? We would never ever initiate and restrain our options only to just one theater of war. So this basically means that if there is a war front which is going to be opened, and once it's opened on Sialkot, once it's opened on these sides, then of course it's going to be a large scale war. And if this is going to be a large scale war, then the question is that it's going to be billions and billions of dollars which are going to be lost. These are going to be those dollars which the Indians have invested themselves. These are going to be those dollars which the Americans have invested. These are going to be those dollars which the Europeans have invested. And now, given the US-India, tariff condition, and also the US-China tariff position, there is going to be a bigger question mark that are they actually in that economic position, that political position, that military position, that they can actually start a war and win a war with Pakistan. Starting a war is no big deal. Anybody can start a war. The real question is, do they have what it takes to win the war? Let me say this very clearly, that they are not in a position to win this war with Pakistan. And this is the case which is based, very strongly in our nuclear capability. It is very strongly based in our resolve to respond back. And also the fact that the Pakistani Air Force has very significantly upmarked itself in terms of taking out its capabilities on ground. And last but not least, the question is this, that it's a good thing to talk about cold start, as a concept, but can they actually operationalize it? This, you have seen that there's lots of divisions coming out of India because the army is saying they're not ready. The Air Force is saying we're not ready to take this shot. So then actually who is? The prime minister who is sitting there and who is basing this entire, war operation on falsehood. And that falsehood he thinks is going to create a notion of victory. Well, if you want to lie to your country, you want to lie to your people, that's another part of the story. But the international community is not going to look at it very, easily. And once the situation becomes far more intense than what it is, of course, there's going to be pressure. If it's not going to be from the United States, which is now an ally to the Indians, it's definitely going to be there from China. It's going to be there from Russia. It's going to be for all the other countries which have invested in this region. And what about the sea lines of communication which are passing from here? So it's not a small thing which they're asking. It is not a doable thing which they're asking, because what they're asking is that they should attack Pakistan and Pakistan should not respond back. They're asking that we should take it lying down. That's not going to happen. Pakistan will respond. Pakistan has stated that, and Pakistan has the ability to send a very clear message that there is no space for war. And if there is going to be space for any kind of war activity on Pakistan, then be prepared for a counteraction by Pakistan.
All right, Maria, stay online with us. We've got lots more to discuss with you. General Saab, you've heard what Maria had to say, and it was a very interesting perspective from her side as well. I'll go back to what our information minister, Mr. Tariq, said in his press, and he talked about India's posturing as judge, jury, and executioner. Yeah. How does this undermine regional stability and international law?
This seriously undermines the regional stability, because I had mentioned briefly about this comment also, that India is trying to act as a complainer. He's complaining, and then he's judging and passing the judgment also, and then he wants to execute also. This is very strange. It's a very dangerous trend. But I would like to add very small two things. What Dr. Maria said, that there is no space for war. In my view, a space for war is always there in our context. It may be confined to a region or maybe to a limited scale. Then if you say that India has the right to wage a war, India doesn't have a right to wage a war. There has to be solid reason, because there is always a moral or justifiable factor, whether how the world see it. But saying that, since not a very educated person, as Dr. Maria said, there is strong dissension inside the Indian, as a country. The Indian National Congress, the Aam Aadmi Party, they are pointing a very hard and pointed question to Modi, that what are you doing? The Kashmiri wants to break away from you. They want a liberation. They want to unite with Pakistan. There is a strong Sikh movement. They want to have a Khalistan. Then there is the movement of Tamils. Then there are 7 eastern states, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Assam. They don't want to be with you. And reportedly, there are over 150 small or big freedom movement taking place in India. And then there is an ex-army chief who comes on the media and say that our army is not prepared to fight a war.
Yes.
And ex-army chief, not retired long time back. And then the Air Force is saying that we are not, we have a serious logistic problems. And then there was a video clip which came in the media where they were trying to have a conference, or they were trying to brief media with the Indian Army senior officer present from the Foreign Office, and the Indian Army senior officer, he walked out. He said, we have a serious problem. And but Modi wants to, for example, I don't know what he's thinking of, that he wants to wage war, and then there are reports that he has given orders to military commanders that you can select the target of your choice. This is a very dangerous trend, because once I have been the senior military commander, once you give such order to military commander can go out of control of you, because they have a situation, they can select targets.
But he also absorbs himself, you know, in this way from anything that happens in the disease. Oh no, I gave the command and he has done it, is not my responsibility.
And then
anymore.
operational commander might take some action whose fallout is not controllable. It is beyond you. So as far as Pakistan preparedness is concerned, as it happened last night, and in addition to 4 Rafale aircraft, there was a lot of firing from Indian along the line of control, and we have destroyed their couple positions. One is Chakpatra post on hill, where they tried to provoke us. We responded them, and till morning the flames and fumes of that post were visible. We have captured that, we have put it on the social media. So they are fool if they are undermining Pakistan's resolve and capability. Our resolve and capability is very solid, that you can start the war. You can, but you don't have the right to start the war. You can start the war, but then it will be us who will be finishing the war. And our response will be quid pro quo, more lethal and painful to you.
True. Gul.i.Ayesha, what message, I mean, Tariq Saab, while ending his message, says the nation reiterates its resolve to defend the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Pakistan at all costs. Has the message been received?
Absolutely. Because, you know, we are the member of the United Nations, and United Nations, the charter says that all the states have got their state sovereignty and their right to have their proper territorial integrity, and that is the one of the charter we should be respecting, and this is what we are talking about. If you are trying to have that action that is unilateral and without, and you know the consequences, that it's going to be a volatile situation because there are 2 nuclear states, yet you are trying to jump into the war, and you are violating the international law as well, and you are rejecting the international community, its integrity as well. So this is a very serious concern, and it's going to be a serious international crime as well, because we have seen that they are trying to contact to all, you know, this UN Security Secretary General, and they are calling to the other nations as well, trying to bring them on the same line, but unfortunately they couldn't successful in that. But later on they decided to let's go into the war, and this unilateral decision is dangerous. And you know what, here we should understand one thing, that we need a mediator now. We need a backdoor diplomacy over here now, because if both of the states, they are going to, God forbid, going to jump into the war on a full scale, it's going to be a volatile situation. Then there's no going back. And then later after, the states are coming and they are condemning the human rights violation and all that. So why don't we ask them to come and solve the issue? Once we have talked about the unilateral, about this independent investigation of the whole incidents, and we have provided the evidences from our side, their involvement, their intelligence involvement, their involvement in our terrorist act happening in our Pakistan. So they should be doing that as well. So once there is no, and you know, the international community, they are somehow, they want evidences. So there is no evidence. You are talking about, you know, some kind of you're made up, you know, a party. They are involved in a kind of terrorist activity over there. But you are not able to provide the evidences, and this is something really big. And without, you know, on the false claims, you are starting a war with a nuclear power. This is something really serious.
It shows a premeditated stance by India, that it always wanted to do that, and even including the Indus Water Treaty that has been put in abeyance is a deliberate attempt by India that was premeditated. They wanted this to happen. They were just looking for a pretext for this to happen at any stage, at any time. I think this is what is the reality of it.
There is another thing I want to add, that is the way they are controlling the narrative of their own people, because now people question their security issues. I mean, that is problem with your security measure, because this happened. They are asking us on so many places, they are asking the resignation of Amit Shah. So this is something
700,000 plus troops in an area, and this happens, and nobody knows what happens, and nobody comes to the rescue, and it is only the Muslims who come to the rescue, and then they are being you know, put as the target, and everybody is waging this Hindu versus Muslim war
And
in
that's
India.
why they restricted the Pakistani media, because they don't want them to
Yeah,
listen
they
to
have
the
banned
opposite
so many
narrative.
YouTube channels of the
Yes.
Indian media. It discontinues this media. Censorship continues as well. Maria, what would be the potential consequences of any Indian military adventurism for the already fragile security dynamics in South Asia?
It will be destroyed. That's the short answer. Because the long answer is this, that anything which India will do, it will be contested by Pakistan. And Pakistan, let's not forget something. We are a country which has got a lot of war resilience. We have fought a war for the last 20 years. We are still in the state of war. So war is natural to us, and our army is, a war combatant military force. So this basically means this is not a military which you're talking, which doesn't understand what it means to actually mobilize in war, what it means actually to have those pressures, and what it means to actually execute them. We have done multiple operations, large-scale operations, low-end operations, you name it. We have engaged with the global militaries in Afghanistan. We have dealt with the situation in Pakistan. Just this week alone, we have, intercepted 71 plus, terrorists which wanted to infiltrate Pakistan. And DGISPR has been very clear, even in terms of providing those evidences, in which we have actually seen raw carrying out acts of terrorism in Pakistan and actually aiding and facilitating and abating those. So in response to that, the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force and in the Indian Navy is actually in a state of transformation. They are trying to transform from a British-based army to an American-based army. And in this case, they're looking for theaterizing the command. They're looking for isolated operations. And they've not actually settled their piece yet. So once they initiate any kind of military, combat processes against Pakistan, Pakistan is going to respond back. And like I said, it's going to be high intensity, high tempo engagement. And if it's going to be a high intensity, high tempo engagement, this basically means there is going to be billions and billions of dollars of losses, which are going to happen because there is only one way to handle this escalation, and that is escalate to de-escalate. So for the Indians, the message is very clear. If they really want to have a war with Pakistan, they should think twice, think thrice, actually think it through. Because Pakistan is not going to be an easy target, one. Number two, Pakistan will hit back. Pulwama was a case in time which showed that. And number three, we are not a military or not an armed forces which does not have the support of its people. People of Pakistan, the armed forces of Pakistan are ready to engage with anything, whether it comes in the shape of Modi, whether it comes in the shape of any kind of aggression against Pakistan. We are ready to face the war, and we are not going to deal with it in a low-end state. So this basically means that it is going to be highly destabilizing. It's not good for the two countries. It's not good for the global economy, and it's definitely not good for those who are trying to project that they can actually come and hit Pakistan without any repercussions. So the message is very clear. They should think about peace. They should think about rationality, and they should think about that, what is going to be a face-saving situation for them and a way out for them to come out domestically. Because the more they're going to go in, the more it's going to turn into a rabbit hole. The more lies are going to come out. And the more lies are going to come out, the more complicated it's going to become for them to actually, even to prove it to their own people, let alone anybody internationally, that what they are saying is actually has any ounce of truth in it. The only thing we can hope from this is that there is more attention given to the people of Kashmir, whose houses are being demolished at this moment, who have been threatened inside of the Indian held Kashmir, and their right to life and right to existence is being challenged in the name of whatever falsehood is being based on the basis and called on the name of terrorism.
All right, Maria, please stay with us. General Saab, I'll come back to this, Indian general who's been arrested, who has been now, I don't know which kind of case is being put on him because he refused to comply with the orders, and he has been very swiftly replaced. Now, what I'd like to understand, it is twofold. Something that you've already said, but I'd like to highlight it again so that you can explain it in detail. With such a decorated and experienced officer, who's the chief of the Northern Command, being scapegoated, what are the deeper implications for India's military morale and operational integrity in sensitive regions such as IIOJ? Secondly, how does this Modi government's aggressive posturing, followed by this internal fallout as we have seen, and there will be many others I'm sure, expose the weaknesses in India's false flag strategy and propaganda narrative?
You see, this is a very serious situation. that a Northern Command commander, who is a Lieutenant General 3-star rank officer, and he has been very illustrious career. I was just going through his career. He has been their Commandant of Infantry School. He is from Assam Rifle. He is very decorated soldier. He has also been the Vice Chief of Staff in their headquarters. So he is not a normal Indian soldier, and the biggest command is the Northern Command, you see, which takes care, look after the complete Ladakh area and complete our border with even this Srinagar up to Srinagar. So he is quite a huge command with a big responsibility. So he has been very short notice. He has been called back because reportedly he said that I don't have any. This incident has happened in my area of command, but I have no evidence that Pakistan. I start seeing that Pakistan is involved into it. So once you remove a top commander, it has a very serious implication for the subordinate commander who has served with them, and this shows the discontentment within their hierarchy. I would just like to add that you see in our case, Pahalgam incident 8 days ago has happened, and till date they have not been able to give any evidence.
Exactly.
On the contrary side, the Jafar train incident happened in Pakistan. Over 60 people have been killed, including over 3 dozens of complete this terrorist. Pakistan didn't say that we are going to war with India. We said we have a credible evidence, we have monitored them, we are compiling them, we will take them to the United Nations. We will take them to any forum, every forum where we can. That is a state, that is a
responsible attitude.
That's the difference between us and them. So their population is also going to, our ISPR and the national media has played a very important role, keeping not only our people informed, but also across the border. And that's why they have banned the number of our YouTube channels, number of national television channel, and also the Twitter account of our defense minister. So that shows
many other journalists as well.
So as I say, the lie doesn't have any, for example, it cannot, you have to say more lies. So there is no end to it.
There is no end to it.
If they have any better sense, they need to realize.
Do they have that better sense? I mean, this is really a question that I'd like to
ask. It's $1 million question. But I hope the sense will, some better sense will arrive on Modi. But in this, another thing I want to add is that this is the time once you know who's your friend and who's is not your friend. So those people who have stood with us solidly, number one, China. We need to take them into confidence. Number 2 is Saudi Arabia, as good as China. They have stood with us. So we need to tell them, this is the situation. Now you have to come out a little more proactively and give strong message to India that we are monitoring. Either you give some evidence, and if you don't give any evidence and you try to cross border of Pakistan, then we are with Pakistan. Such kind of, I think, if message is conveyed, it will have some sensible or some sobering effect on Modi Sahab also.
All right. Also, I'd like to understand, General Saab, this deployment of 700,000 plus troops in the Indian held valley, and this reported intelligence lapses that have happened, because this happened in the IIO-JK region with 700,000 plus troops. You know, can you imagine this area being engulfed by so many troops? And despite that, something like this happens, and they are not in, they don't know. But within 20 minutes, there's an FIR that is registered, and you know, putting the blame on Pakistan and saying, you know, X number, Y number, Z number. You know, things like this. There are so many lapses, intelligence lapses, that it forces any sane person to realize what the reality of the things is. How can Pakistan use this situation to further highlight Indian failures in international forums, especially regarding Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
You see, this is also, for example, is a challenge for Pakistan, but also an opportunity. Now, there is an opportunity to highlight this Kashmir issue at all regional international forum, including United Nations Security Council, including OIC, including International Court of Justice, including all these P5 countries. We need to send our envoys. We need to prepare our cases, and we need to take this country into confidence proactively, rather than reacting to Indian, for example, actions. We need to take 1 or 2 steps further and be more proactive and put Indian on defenses. My personal assessment is that the hearts and mind of the Indian armed forces and the people are not with them. Since the time this incident has happened, Pakistani nation has got united. There is a unified stand which Pakistan is projecting. Pakistan is projecting confidence, unity among its masses, and fully supporting his armed forces. But India there are dissension, there are divisions, they are questioning their own leadership. So there's a big difference.
But there's a reason for that questioning, isn't there?
Exactly.
A very logical reason for that aspect. All right, General Saab, thank you very much for your presence here. You've been extremely kind to us and have portrayed your point of view as far as all this incident is concerned. We'll continue with Gul.i.Ayesha. Bhatti, Gul.i.Ayesha, I'd like to understand. You talked a little bit about mediation, in your last response. What message should Pakistan, or I'm sure Pakistan has already done that, but what message should be delivered to regional powers such as China, Turkey, Iran regarding India's reckless military planning and its implications if something happens for regional peace?
Well, obviously they are closely observing all the situation and development that is happening in this region that is likely to be more volatile, unfortunately, and they are closely looking into the situation and scenario as well in which the situation should be solved. One way is that China has so much economic developmental goals in Pakistan, and then with India as well. So China has time and again offered his mediation services and talked about there should be some trilateral, all of three members of the state, they are going to sit together and they're going to find out the solution. And similarly, they are going to, the Iran has presented its offer as well, and we have the UAE. So international community is with them. They are closely monitoring all the development happening, and they know that because of this false claim, India is taking this kind of strong reaction, and that is completely aggressive in nature. As far as the rest of the South Asian states are concerned, they have already somehow disappointment with the India and the behavior that India is projecting in the region, and that is really unfortunate. And once we talk about America and once we talk about United Nations, so they have offered this the policy of restraint, that you should be sit together and be cool-headed and bring solution to the table. But if one party is not ready to understand that there should be a solution and there should be a mediation process, so Pakistan cannot do anything. It's going to, but yes, what we can do is that, like previously my colleague was talking about, and that was that how we strongly convey our message diplomatically to all the states around the world, so that they should know our point of view as well. I think we are doing it successfully. The way we are not controlling their media, we are not banning their media, because we know that our people, they know the truth, that who is the person we should be blaming. And similarly, we have the strong faith that all of our segments of the society, they are on the same page, and there is a strong military and civilian unity that is obvious for, and we cannot ignore it. And because of that reason, once the whole state is on one page, so obviously once there is resilience, once there is unity, so we are on the strong position. But once we talk about the international community, that international community should be taking care of all these scenarios. This region is called as this nuclear threshold, and nuclear threshold should be controlled, should not be volatile by this ruthless act of India. And I think China is going to have a serious step on it, and it's important because China is one of the, I would say that stakeholder in the Kashmir.
And stakeholders in the region as well,
Yes.
But it's not just that, it's the United Nations as well, and this is the time when the United Nations needs to play a proactive role. We know the number of resolutions that are there in the United Nations Security Council that have been passed by the UNSC as far as Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are concerned. Nothing has been done, no action has been taken. It has been decades. And now when you see something like this happening in the Indian Hill Valley, and when you see the jingoism, the warmongering by India, I think United Nations needs to step in. But what needs to understand that UNMOGIP is still not able to get access to IIOJK.
That is, I would say that's really unfortunate, and it's a failure kind of to solve this issue since so many years. And there is specifically there is a UN resolution 97 that is on the right of self-determination of the Kashmiris. So United Nations is failed over here, I would say, because they are not ready to fulfill, and we are looking up to the United Nations, and I don't know where they are, and they are not looking into the solution, and they are somehow, sometimes there is a discussion going on the international forum that says that United Nations has biasness somehow, and they don't listen to those who are actually in the pain, but they are always becoming the mouthpiece of the superpowers. So here I can see that, okay, whatever is happening in the Kashmir is, the UN is somehow responsible for that as well, because they are failed in this point. They are not fulfilling their so many resolutions, but I remember the 47 that says that there should be the plebiscite, and there is nothing happened. And who is suffering? The Kashmiris are suffering, and now we are suffering because once you have such a kind of bad-headed guy in your neighborhood, how can you live in the peace?
All right, that is so true. But there's another thing also, and that is very evident, and that is the fact that the public within India, a lot of sane people in India, and especially the people, the Muslims in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, have been highlighting the truth, have been negating what has been, what is being said in the Indian media, and reports such as a man saying Allahu Akbar in the area, because this is a very normal Muslim reaction to say Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah, or Shukr Alhamdulillah, or things like that. And he just said that, and that guy was arrested by the Indian authorities just on the fact, simple fact that he said Allahu Akbar. There is such a malevolent design to separate the Hindus and Muslims in India, that it becomes more than apparent what the Hindutva designs are now more than ever. I am so happy. I am so happy that Major General Tariq Rashid Saab continues to join us. I thought he had left us, but he has very graciously agreed to stay with us for the last few minutes. When you look at this Indian public reaction that is coming, also there are reactions that completely back the government stance, that back whatever has happened in thing. And there are certain statements, like for example by Barka Dutt, who we thought was a sane element, but her statements on social media negate that, and it's so sad to see somebody like her saying what she's saying. Nevertheless, this said, let's come to the Indian public, and let's come to the public, the Muslims in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Does their voice matter?
I think it should matter. It should matter, and as it said, you cannot fool all the person all the time. You cannot subjugate and suppress freedom voices or the people of your country all the time. You can do it temporarily. Example from last 2 decades, over 800,000 people, army personnel are there, military personnel. They have not been able to suppress or subjugate the people of Kashmir. I've seen video recently after the Pahalgam incident, where the Indian soldiers are standing in the Srinagar city, and the people are chanting slogan against them, against the Modi government. They're just watching. They seem helpless, right? They are not doing any action. So they are also fed up. So India need to realize that it cannot subjugate, suppress all the freedom movements in the country. Need to give right to, for example, those people, at least to Kashmiri people, which is an international issue. And it was India who has gone to United Nations Security Council. We didn't go there. It is the Nehru who went there, and he pledged that please ask Pakistan not to reinforce this freedom fighter. And once the situation stabilizes, we will have a plebiscite. Until they have not. And then from there they move on to Shimla agreement, where it was said it will be decided bilaterally. And now they have said, for example,
what have they said as far as similar agreement? What has India done which
so
we
India,
can call proactive or positive as far as?
So from India you
agreement?
can expect anything.
Yes.
For example, they say we signed this Indus Water Treaty in 1960. We don't believe in it. Tomorrow they will say we partitioned with Pakistan, we don't believe in it. There are 2 countries. There is no limit to it. So there are international rule regulation, there are international convention. You can't just violate that.
But this is what India is doing.
So
exactly
this is what
it
is doing for the time being. But I think a strong reaction or sane voices from the international community, like United Nations, International Court of Justice, once the case are taken there, they will in my view, they will give clear message to India that it cannot do unilaterally.
I hope this happens sooner than later.
And then Pakistan, you imagine, they are talking of Rafale, Su-30, which are French made or the Russian made. We have J-17 Thunder Block 3, which is as good as Rafale. We have latest, for example, upgraded F-16. Yes. I was comparing their capability, their speed, their agility is much better than Rafale or Su-30. So we have a credible definiteness whether it's conventional or whether it is unconventional. I think Modi doesn't understand what are the implications of attacking a nuclear capable country. It doesn't understand. But his military commanders who are educated, they understand. And that's what they are saying, that India is not ready for the war. I think they will try to have their say and try to convince him. It is better that he understands. Otherwise, for example, the repercussion could be very severe. But as you know, the Trump said, I don't want to have initiate a new war in the
That is so true. But that is true. Before we go on, we've been joined by Senator Sher Rehman. Thank you very much, ma'am, to have joined us. I'd like to understand how the Indian tourism and war mongering has been effectively countered by Pakistan, and how unified is the Pakistani stance when it comes to countering any such designs by India.
So first of all, let me be very clear. Pakistan's response will be completely united. You will not have the kind of questions being raised in India about how this Pahalgam incident, tragic incident, came about. Was it an intelligence failure, which it surely was a spectacular one, or was it done pre-Bihar election, or what is the point of raising such high tactical assertions and escalatory moves? So I think there's been a series of questions in about of such escalation, and it's verbal. But in Pakistan, there's been across the board, and I think to the surprise of many outside, unity. I've just on the war issue, we are quite united, and the session of the Senate has concluded yesterday, where for 3 days the House was completely united on standing very, very firm in obviously defending the country. Everybody said that we are not seeking to escalate to any hot war. Pakistan has always sought peace. We are not obsessed with India, but it seems that the other side is. And we don't appreciate being blamed within seconds of an attack, being blamed and then framed as well as party to a very heinous terrorist attack. And we are absolutely united in ensuring that a response will be proportionate and completely adequate to meet Pakistan's defense needs. Now, this only means one thing. It means that Pakistan has never sought war, at least this time. There's no question of it. But if there is a war imposed on us, then Pakistan is united in standing together to defend the country, and we will obviously inflict proportionate costs on the enemy.
It's interesting, it's important that Pakistan be unified or united in this current scenario. What measures should Pakistan take, or is Pakistan going to take internationally as well when it comes to our friendly countries, when it comes to the United Nations, in case of any such eventuality?
So, multilateralism is in any case under a bit of a cloud these days, but the UN has very quickly urged, and I think wisely urged, restraint on both sides, as have many international actors. But, is Modi's India listening is the issue. What are they doing? They are absolutely moving into high gear, high velocity on a war of words, which they are weaponizing, like the water treaty, to completely shrink the space for forget peace, but even de-escalatory moves. And there seems to be such high war hysteria in India, as well as a blame game, which even independent interlocutors have declared absurd. I mean, you heard what Robin Rayful said. She said it's absurd to blame a country within minutes of an attack. Then you've heard even, outlets of newspapers of record like the New York Times say that this makes no sense, whereas, that whole narrative is usually aligned much better with India's than Pakistan's, and so on. And several independent international news organizations have done so. Now the point is, Pakistan has made no case at all for going to war, but there is a strong case, obviously, for defending the country, and that too at a time of, I think, many international risks to populations, particularly in South Asia, whether they're, artificial intelligence or whether they're climate threats. Instead of talking, India is resorting to conflict and state-sponsored conflict, which is going to be as dangerous for them as anyone else. It will plunge the region into the dark ages, and the responsibility of that is being shifted onto Pakistan. That there's been an incident, and within minutes, another country is blamed, and war hysteria is created. I've never heard anything like it. And there is just a constant assumption that Pakistan is behind it, which is completely ridiculous, as well as a rejection. What upsets me, and I think makes us all look at the situation with a certain amount of doubt from India's side, is that if they really were interested in unpacking who the terrorists were, or who financed and who led this kind of attack, or who organized it, then they would be very open to neutral, transparent investigations, which they are not. If you reject that, that means you have something to hide. That means there's something to hide. And I'm very sorry to say this, but it looks like, to me, this looks like the beginning and end of a false flag operation. I understand many innocent civilians were obviously killed, and that is indeed tragic. I don't know the scale or point of such human trauma, but occupied Kashmir is not a milk of river and honey and of milk with rivers running off that, because that's what they're trying to portray. They're trying to say it's a paradise open for tourists, all is well. Well, obviously, all is not.
But ma'am, with due reference, the fact is that this is not, in fact, exactly like you were saying, this is a place where 700,000 plus troops are present, and they are making their lives miserable, and such false flag operations are adding to the misery of the people of the Indian Hill Valley. Thank you very much, Senator Sher Rehman, to have joined us. Thank you very much, Major General Tariq Rashid Khan Saab, to have joined us, and thank you so very much, Gul.i.Ayesha, to have joined us and to have remained with us for these 2 hours. Ladies and gentlemen, the ball is in India's court, but believe me, if India tries anything, we are ready for it, and we will respond effectively, and then you will remember the Pakistan response for decades to come. Allah Hafiz.